session one of the Shared Services Forum sort of Digital Leadership Summit. We've had a scintillating day yesterday. We've had a couple of sessions yesterday where we looked at, what is the need for change? How do we create that kind of holistic readiness? We looked at the new rules of the game. People are asking for OPEX as against CAPEX. We're looking at the real acceleration of technology. And today, we actually start the session with looking at it from the CIOs, CTOs, the IT department's lens. How are they striking the balance between, on one hand, to renovate, to fix, to maintain, to keep the lights on, and on the other hand, to innovate. Those are, they pretty much sometimes come in conflict, and you've got to strike the right balance because your users, your customers, internal and external, are going to be asking, one way or the other, either fix what we have or, hey, it's time to innovate. I have a very distinguished panel with me. I'm just very, very fortunate to be with this panel. You all got the profiles, but very, very briefly. So I'm a chartered accountant here in the UK. I have been involved with since the mid-90s and watched them sort of evolve over the years. So I've kind of been a user of technology, and now obviously with what's happening, technology now takes the forefront. Unlike a lot of other crises that we've had in the past, it could be the financial services sector, whatever, this is a crisis that actually hits HR and IT the most. Great to have the panel with me. Very briefly, if the individual can just either nod or, depending on how energetic they feel, probably wave. I've got Balaji, who is the CTO for ICICI Bank. We have Rajesh Mishra, CIO of VE Commercial Vehicles. We have Dr. Puneet Kaur, the CIO from Manappuram Finance. And we have Urs-Ulrich, who is the head of business development shared services from Bell Food in Basel. So welcome team, welcome everyone. Just a few house rules for the participants. We have a host of, a window of questions that you can post. So I encourage all the participants to post as many questions as they can. The panelists will answer them as we go along. Leverage on the opportunity that you've got these five seasoned IT professionals on this panel. And any questions that are still kind of left, we'll try and mop them up in the session. However, I know there's a lot of questions, so just post as many as you can. We will run a small poll somewhere into the session, and the host will just pose a question. If all of the participants can just kind of answer that poll, and then we'll look at the answer to that, and then pick that up further. Great. So without much further ado, let me get kicked off. So a question to all of my panelists. So we were talking about striking the balance between innovate and renovate. So if I was to say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being where you would renovate, you would fix, you would maintain, and 10 being where you would innovate, your customers, both internal and external, what are they demanding of you? What is their expectation? Where are you on that scale of 1 to 10? So if I can ask Rajesh first that.
So I would put it at 9, and I just wanted to explain this. See, 3 factors. One is that as a industry, commercial vehicle was already into a major change. We were getting into a BS6, equivalent of Euro 6 in India, which called for a lot of new solutions which have to be put in place, and most of these solutions were tech driven. So that momentum we had, and we had to build more on that momentum. And second is, due to pandemic, what happened that every function started demanding more digital. So sales want contactless sales, supply chain wants investment, manufacturing wants less operator in shop floor, then how do they manage? So the internal customer also have demanding. And third point is, lights on are kind of given things. So there is no excuse if you are not able to keep your lights on. So that is a given thing now. So there is no discussion on why even with all this pandemic, We never had any breakdown, and all applications, including our audits, everything was as seamless as it was earlier.
So you're on a scale of 9. I mean, that's a demand. Balaji, can I ask you that same question?
As I was talking to you before, it is more than 10, I would say. It's around 10.5. 10.5, if I am free to answer 10.5. So the one, it's not just the internal customers, like Rajesh rightly said, all the internal customers are demanding a complete digital way of working. Not just that, but if you see banking in the country where the transactions are pretty large scale customer migration towards digital channel. Of course, already India is always in the very higher maturity in terms of digital payments compared to many other countries globally, many other even Western countries globally. We are already higher in terms of the digital payments. But now this is migrating people to very large scale digitally transacting within the country, use of less cash usage. So, so that way, both from internal as well as from the customers, there's been a huge demand to migrate, and the volume of transactions on digital have actually exploded.
Yes.
But the volume of transactions on the digital transactions is more than more than what we were pre-COVID. Though the overall transactions could be just catching up, the volume of digital transactions have exploded compared to even to pre-COVID days. So both from the customer and internal, there's been a huge call for complete digitalization and digitalization, and that's why it's, the demand is pretty huge. And as Rajesh rightly said, lights on is assumed that it has to be always lights on.
That's the bread and butter, right? That's just got to be done at all times. Dr. Puneet, can I ask you that same question?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, thanks for this opportunity, and a warm welcome to all my co-panelists and the delegates who are a part of this great show today. So definitely, if it's live with Balaji and it's with Rajesh, it's the same thing which replicates with us also. During this time, it's not about keeping the lights on. The demand for customer digitization started in the time of demonetization only, when they were almost like 2000 was the kind of daily set limit for the ATMs to be withdrawn, and so the spread of this digital Bharat, or what we talk about digital India, spread in the masses during those days itself, where you will see that people the acceptance of Paytms or like the wallet systems and all even came to the rural masses also during that time. So I can see the deep down penetration of such digitalization, or like opening up digital accounts, Jan Dhan, and all those things which Indian government introduced. It plays its role, and it really survived in India because of this pandemic times. India was almost ready, I must say that. If not 100%, but at least 40% or 50%, India had the readiness already because of that demonetization stage. And the acceptability of people, the digital branches, or you talk about like whether it is internal or external stakeholders. So I would suggest that whether it is banking or whether it resonates with my kind of business in the NBFCs or anything, I think so demand is more, and equally, from a technology standpoint, supply also has to be, proportionate to that. So, so the surge is very high. Whether you talk about B2B or B2C, the things when we talk about a complete reprioritization of certain digital initiatives, when it talks about from internal and external stakeholders perspective, if something had to be, mended in 3 months time or 3 months time, the months is reduced into days into hours, and hours into minutes. So that is the kind of, expectations which are being set forth. And now people had really started leveraging technology, whether they say that like the turnaround time is bad, and at the back end you can also say they are also in some kind of business pressure to meet these growing timelines, meeting the growing demands, competitive readiness, go to markets very strong. All this makes a culture of a digital savviness in any organization, and if we are not ready for it, then survival is very difficult. At least in our stage, what we could feel that our transaction got from 1x to multi-x, you can say that. And it was not only in the cloud, because we had to, based on the surges, we had to create a lot of upscaling and, up or downscaling of certain digital campaigns because of the growing demands in the market, or people were, expected to do that. So the capacities also at the back end, the service management or the teams who were working round the clock, whether it is infra or it is information security or creating on the digital readiness also, all these were working along with the partners ecosystem was also working round the clock. If we are not able to perform, the thing is that like the end user experience would have been very bad. So
Right.
that was a 360-degree thing that was almost, we people were ready for actually.
Got it. And the demand there is again. So let me bring in the last member of our panel, Urs. What would your view be there, Urs, in terms of the expectations that your customers are putting on you?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Our customer is not as savvy as your customers or the customers of the other panelists. It's very interesting. Our major customer is our mother company, biggest retailer in Switzerland, and they are not looking for digital disruption at all. They want us to do gradual steps, and they also self-claimed are not a first mover, but the gradual adapter. So that's what we are looking at. We are looking at, we are as a food group, we are the food producer producing meat and producing convenience foods and so on. And we need to adapt according to the requirements of our customer in regards to the supply chain, in regards to logistics, and in regards to quality management, and especially traceability, which is a hip thing nowadays, where we use new technologies to set up. But we are not the outcast here of not being so strongly into disruption. On the other hand, if we not look at our customers, but at our internal needs and at the market needs, we as IT of the food group, we are looking at a lot of new things in regards to automation in the production, as well as in the administration of our company.
Well, I think that's why having you on the panel absolutely, goes back to the very question as to how do you strike that balance between the two. And here we have, expectations coming on both ends. So for you, Urs, if I was to just come back on that point, because you're obviously the anomaly here amongst the other four, amongst the rest of the panel, how would you then start bringing in an awareness into your organization of, hey, we do need to innovate to stay ahead, especially with this kind of a pandemic that we have and the whole kind of work from anywhere scenario came in, that had to be implemented in 24 hours, literally.
Yeah, for us as IT, from my background, also being in shared services previously, also in India, for me it is how do I sell my services and how do I sell new services, and I'm looking at the needs, and we have especially here in Switzerland we have the needs of specialized staff, where we have a big lack of specialized staff. So we go in there and we say, okay, how can we automate these processes to be independent from these specialized staff in production, so in food production, and to work, for example, also with artificial intelligence, with cameras, artificial intelligence on the production belt, where before specialists were looking at things. Now we introduce these things. So where we come from as IT, we say, look, here's an issue. We know that from the discussions with the operations, and then we come up with ideas with our IT specialty knowledge and with our networking into the innovation environment in Switzerland and internationally. And then we try on lots of times successfully try to sell these ideas, and then of course in the end it's a cost benefit perspective which you put on it, and especially that's usually how you get the business side in all the projects.
Just a question for the host on the side. Am I the only person struggling to get Urs, or is there a bad connection with Urs for the rest of you as well?
I think it might be on my side here.
There's
okay.
a noise. Yeah.
The rest of you are able to hear Urs quite well?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So let me then come back to this, the whole idea of sort of how do we strike that balance. Now, progressive organizations like the ones that a lot of you represent there in India, you're obviously required to be agile, disruptive on one hand, and on the other hand, keep the lights on, be reliable, be balanced. So how are you enabling business impact beyond just productivity, beyond just being able to keep the lights on? How are you enabling that in your organizations? So if I can put that to Rajesh first.
Yeah, so I think there are 2-3 elements. One is that, at least in our case, we are in a B2B business, and being commercial vehicle industry, again, I wanted to repeat that we had been in downtrend for almost last 6 to 8 quarters. One of the key element, while there was a digital innovation roadmap which was already approved, how do we remain cost effective in whatever we do? And so that was a key challenge. So we started planning quite in advance. So the way we have architected the whole thing is that we, at least for all our digital customer programs, we are working with more a startup ecosystem, and which have both development partners and solution partners, and which brings a lot of agility and cost effectiveness. And how it helped us that on the overall solution architecture, we had frozen it quite early. So now solution is there. It is using cloud and all the latest analytics PaaS platform. And because of this small startup ecosystem which we have built, we could do much faster. We can turn around things like Puneet was talking about, months to days. So we are able to turn around things, at least a good sizable project in 3 months, smaller projects in 15 to 20 days time. So that is helping us. The earlier preparation is helping us to do much agile and quicker.
So, I mean, unlike, I guess, we commercials, the organizations have actually, struggled to use these preferred platforms, AI, blockchain, etc. There's been a great buzz of trying to get it in as fast as possible, and then they've not really been able to leverage that as much as they'd initially anticipated. And some of their business cases, as a result, haven't quite got delivered. I mean, the whole definition of a return on investment now is, far quicker. Whereas in the old days, it used to be 6 months to a year. Now we're just talking about months. In light of some of these kind of, the external ecosystem has slowed things down in that sense and getting the best of this. I wonder if I can bring in Balaji. How have you experienced that in being able to, within your organization, to be able to, speed that up and really leverage these platforms to the best that the platforms do provide, but companies just haven't been able to get the best of it?
Okay, as far as banking is concerned, we are a full-fledged bank that way. So we deal with all sections of society. I mean, we are a cross-section of the GDP of the country. So which means we deal with retail, we deal with corporate, we deal with business, B2B, all put together, B2B to C, B2B, B2C. You put any combination, we are there. And in the country, our journey started much before all this pandemic time also. But right from the time we had demonetization and subsequent GST, the digital transactions in the country have gone up quite substantially. Though all our businesses have gone in 2 digits, the digital transactions have been growing in 3 digits for us. The growth of this one for the last few years. So the need for being flexible, need for being agile is one of the requirements where we can do business itself. It's a business imperative as far as we are concerned. So we have been working on lots of service-based approach. There are lots of AI, RPA, and that kind of area. We are working on digitizing to a large-scale transactions. So right now we are getting into cloud. I'm not just talking about ICICI Bank. I'm talking about the entire banking industry per se. We are all of us are getting into cloud. That is because the volume of transactions have been seeing a huge increase, especially in even if customers forget, people like e-commerce players like Amazon or Flipkart, they come with a billion-day sale, and suddenly the transactions touch the roof. And we have to keep ourselves always keep growing, suddenly expecting increased activity and how the system will behave. So we have been working on agility and participant for the last few years. Not that we have mastered, but we are working on it, continuously working on it. And the entire endeavor is to make a complete flexible technology stack for the bank. We have been working for the last few years. Yeah.
I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, the whole demonetization of India really, put a lot of very high need to digitize at that pace. I think that was probably kind of really prepared you very well for what's happened in the last few months. Any thoughts from you on this, Dr. Puneet?
Yeah, I will also agree with Balaji that, last 2 years, though 2 to 3 years, has been a major impact in terms of doing in-house digitalization. The impact and basically the prioritizations of the business stakeholders has also changed. Now they're expecting more to be digitized end to end. So in terms of leveraging the disruptive technologies, when we talk about its reachability to the masses, is really it's reaping its benefits if you really feel that what kind of customer segmentation you are catering to. In our scenarios, like we have people coming from the rural masses, we're talking about microfinance, we have people from gold loan. So people, our pledge cycle can be for as early as 1 day kind of a pledge, and people can immediately pay the interest for a particular day, and then probably they can immediately settle the account on the next following day. So it talks about what kind of a real customer are the people. Do they really are having their email IDs or not? Or people, we need to create some kind of a co-creation models to them. So reachability to the masses is either through certain contact box where people were giving some cold calling, or you can say the bots which we're talking about, or speech engines playing a vernacular kind of a thing where they were educated or setting a context in terms of an awareness that what exactly is going on in terms of if they're not interested for a gold loan or a gold backed loan something, then reaching out through if internal automation through robotics process automation, which is talking about turnaround time to be very fast. In terms of my bank reconciliations are today almost 45 banks are on RPA today. So they are fully automated end to end. Or you talk about the scorecards basically, which talks about it's reaping its benefits, the MIS, which was a traditional way of reporting in the .NET and all, coming on a visualization tool like Tableau. A lot of back-end work is being done by the developers and the people from the business side also, finding that what is the use of technology, and they're reaching out to the technology department that we need to automate this process. The turnaround time is faster, rather than people get upskilled and they can be utilized in some other key processes for the business. And so much so that even the chatbot, or if people have emails, so we were giving emails or auto SMS, or even doorstep banking was also being introduced, where if they could not come physically to the branches because branches were not being open, so the mobility played a very big role, which they reached out to the masses and they were able to pledge and repledge their gold, and onto the current day of the gold they used to get the direct hit into their the extra gold or the top up loan into their accounts. So that kind of convenience, these disruptive technologies really bring its benefits. It's really reaping out.
I mean, in this dynamic, I mean, I think the word ever-changing doesn't quite define it. I think there needs to be a stronger word than ever-changing, need to transform. I wonder when you look at your own internal organizations, and it's the cultural change that's required is sometimes difficult to gauge and indeed to manage. Dr. Puneet talked about reskilling. There may be potential redundancies in that whole kind of cultural change. Moving to using bots, et cetera, et cetera. So I wonder if how have you been able to overcome the need to transform, obviously, overcome the organizational resistance, if you like, to some extent that we all have to change. So maybe Rajesh, if you can highlight on points in there within your organization.
Yeah. So I think that's a very good point. At least in a manufacturing organization, legacy manufacturing, change management always used to be a biggest issue in success of a lot of digital initiatives. So I think what happened post this pandemic and a simple, this meeting tool has transformed the mindset of people, and the leadership have seen the power of digital with such a simple tool, and which has really taken over the whole business operation so seamlessly in a quick couple of days. So that has actually resetted their minds quite a bit. And what I'm seeing in most of the initiative, we have now shoulder to shoulder kind of ownership. So any large initiative, we are seeing the business head himself is involving, and it is more top down, which really help us in driving down the change. So this is a huge change I am seeing, at least in my organization, and which is helping us to actually deliver value. What is the value of that initiative? That is being understood and that is being realized.
And has that then been matched with, you talked about kind of a top-down realization and a push-down. What about a bottoms-up? Within your organization, has there been a desire to also equally say, hey, I need to embrace this new way of working. I know I need to work with a bot so I can handle the exceptions, et cetera, et cetera. Has that also found that through the bottoms-up as well?
So, So what, so the way it is working out, so one is that each platform is more function oriented. So if I am doing digitization in HR, so only HR fraternity is involved. And what we are seeing, the teams which are coming with us, they are all the newcomers in the organization. So they are very amenable, and they are torch bearer in their own community. So while there is a top-down approach, but the people who are working with us are quite new, who have been in the organization only for last 2-3 years, and their adoption and absorption and willingness and passion is very high. So the mix of top-down and this bottom-up is driving the change within their that is how it is working out. So like supply chain or manufacturing, so everywhere we are seeing this trend.
Right. That's really interesting. So I wonder if I can just bring in Urs here from your perspective. Obviously, you're at a slightly different end of that scale. How have you been able to deal with that organizational cultural change that's required, or the resistance that you might have felt?
Yeah, so how we did it, when I joined them about 3 years ago, I came from, as I said, from a very progressive organization, and I saw a lot of things, and I was able to, through my networking and also to pointing out things, to digitize a lot of processes. We had a lot of paper processes before internal. We had also hardly any video conferencing, and I was lucky to be able to also do a lot of things there. So we rolled out WebEx, which we use now. Now after the first COVID waves, we use that just very normally. Everybody has WebEx. Before that, nobody really used it. And as I'm a member of the crisis team for COVID, right at the beginning, I was giving another boost for WebEx everywhere, and in the end, everybody was grateful about it. So people naturally absorb the digitalization because everybody is actually quite tech savvy nowadays. Everybody has a mobile phone, and you just need to set it up in a similar way. Then you'll be able to sell it to the people. And now even all the administration, not all, but many of the administration process we have digitized from paper to electronic little no coding apps in our organization, and people appreciate that. And like this, I think it's got even a kind of an acceleration from the first steps. The more people use it, the more they are tech savvy, and the more they appreciate any additional new small disruption in their work environment.
Right. That certainly helps to make it easier for you guys to drive that through. So I wonder now would be a good time if I could ask the host to just open the poll question, and we can ask the participants to respond. So, host, could you post the poll, because I'd like to look at the results during the panel discussion if I can. Great. So we have a question there. If all of you can, oh, I think we just lost it again. Yeah, great. So if everyone can just respond to this, let me give it 45 seconds to a minute for you to go through this and give us your response. Panelists, please feel free as well at the same time. Though I'd expect to know your answers anyway. Great. Hopefully you all had a chance to look at that question and respond. Let's give it another 5 seconds, host, if you can then close the poll in about another 5-10 seconds. Perfect. Thank you so much. Whilst the team pulls, yeah, if you can close that poll now, whilst the team in the back end processes those results. A question for you, Urs, if I can as well. How do you partner now with in the BPO world, and also the captive center world, to align to this to the digital journey that's required? In your context?
Sorry, help me with that question. How do I partner within my organization or external?
No, so in a shared services world, how do CIOs partner with your kind of shared service world to align with this digital journey? So you've got the CIOs kind of really demanding, let's move ahead. You've got a shared service world that is probably doing a little bit of a catch up. Is there an alignment there that you need to kind of drive?
So we align with you mean with the operations? How we as the IT align with the operations?
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm having a bad connection. I'm very. Maybe I stop my video to get a better.
Yeah, maybe if you can just have you on the audio. I'm also struggling to kind of catch what you're saying some of the time. So you can hear us, right?
It's weird. Yes.
Right. So we've also found, and when you look at the trend of outsourcing, that a number of organizations have now started to insource the technology, and the whole transformation strategy, because they feel kind of it's best implemented internally. Is this a valid reason for insourcing? I mean, there's obviously a logic that the BPO world can combine various specialists, whereas the internal insourced department has to rely on itself. I'm just trying to understand the trend for the insourcing away from the outsourcing world.
Yeah, so we have not too much outsourced before. We have we have the shared services of IT internally, and we're actually growing still internally as shared services. We're still growing. We're taking over more responsibilities from departments. We are also getting, since I'm here, I said that IT is IT and nobody goes into their own project. So I was able to grasp everybody together to also have a holistic view on IT. and have a strong cooperation. I am representing also the IT in our local board here at the head office in Switzerland, and my boss is doing that on a global scale. So we are in all the board meetings representatives, and like this, we always know at first all the needs from our internal and external customers, and according to this, we are able to log in with these. So, but we are actually taking more. We are focusing more on getting the business, so to say, in. So it's more, if you're in an overskip, we putting more into the shared services.
So that same question, if I can, to Balaji as well. Are you seeing a change in trend as well to insource more than outsource in the industry?
In the banking industry, you're saying?
Yeah.
In the banking industry, I would say that the trend to outsource is more. I'm saying from IT perspective. I'm not saying from the shared service perspective. From the IT perspective, I can say is that there are lots of SaaS, and whatever this one, plenty of these kind of this one is coming, and even for IT, even cloud is an outsourcing. So we have been using internal, and we are getting outsourced. So from that point of view, there has been a large scale movement towards outsourcing the IT within the banking industry in the country is going on at this point of time.
And clearly, then you probably are seeing a whole host of new tools, platforms coming onto the market through these
Right.
partners.
You are right there, because this is about the new tools which are coming and new ways of doing business. And since I mentioned that we are a cross section of the GDP, any movement in the country into digital, or any movement in customers moving to a digital space or a technology space, we have to adapt to that, because that's where we will be there to serve the customers. So our movement will actually move the way the industries move, and there with e-commerce and other technology clients coming in, fintech partners coming in, payment banks, all the payments providers like Google Pay or Amazon Pay, wallets, whatever. I mean, some of these terms which we have not used in the last 7-8 years, they're all there in the market. So we have to be up ourselves to reach there wherever they are. So, so there's a constant evolution as far as the banking is concerned.
And Rajesh, from your perspective?
Yeah. So I had a couple of points here, specifically from shared services perspective. My views are that we also had set up shared services some 4 years back. So when we started, we said we should keep it internal. Primarily, the reason was that we were not sure that how much our processes will work seamlessly. So when you set up the shared service, then only you realize that a lot of standardization has to be driven in the way different businesses are doing, say, AP process or fixed asset capitalization process. So initially, it helps to be in-source, to standardize and bring it to a level where it all becomes a very SOP driven. But
right.
Now, with the advent of digital, again, it is a debate between outsourcing and insourcing, and primarily, we are just launching a program now. And so what we see that we have to evolve the shared services not only as a transactional processing services, but as an analytics COE. So you build it, because the analytics is nothing, it's not about one time, it has to be continuously looked at it, improved upon it. So you now transform the shared services as an analytics COE to help business to get the better insights on a continuous basis. So that is how we are seeing, but from an IT side, I agree with Balaji that what is mundane and your end user services or data center services or opportunity on cloud, at least from a customer ecosystem, whatever is for the customer, we are hosting everything on cloud. So that outsourcing will continue.
Yeah.
But on the agile and digital development, as I shared some time back, we have taken a strategy of a partner, ecosystem partner, where we keep good SME kind of skills within our company. That skills we don't depend on partners. So knowledge on the architecture, solution, domain remains with us. And with this partners, we do all the new developments or digital ecosystem creation. So these are some of my perspective around both BPO as well as IT shared services.
So I wonder, Urs, whether you have a response or a thought to that. From a user of a shared services perspective, you just heard Rajesh sort of saying how we would like to upscale the shared services. So you're responsible for business development, shared services, IT. Any comments from you on that?
That's actually my main task. How to upscale the shared services is in bringing in more added value and also measurable added value. I implemented KPIs with our customers also to show them where we stand. That's also visibility of what you perform. It's also very important. And then, of course, what I mentioned also before, bringing up always innovative ideas and trying to sell them, even if you have an organization which is not so much into innovations, but to scale up the innovations which you bring by just simply bringing in new ideas and especially focusing these ideas on the business requirements. That's always, of course, important, the most important one. You need to bring added value to the business in the end.
So yeah, I think it's again a great opportunity for the shared services world to be the leader in the space, set up COEs, et cetera, and not just be the old kind of data cleansing, data management, transaction processing centers as they used to be. I wonder if do we have the response to that poll? Could we share the response to that poll yet? Aha, we pretty much spread across the board here. So it looks like we need a bit of almost everything going on. So that's an interesting perspective. So the full deployment of new and cutting technologies can best be accelerated by, and I think by just a very marginal difference, bringing on board the complete ecosystem. And we've certainly talked about the ecosystem here for a joint win-win program. I think, closely followed by, you've got to create that culture, keeping the innovation project independent of the lights on process, which is what we were talking about, the COEs. The run carries on, whereas the change runs in parallel. Interesting. Any thoughts from the panel on these responses? I mean, I think when we look at the whole complete ecosystem, and then wondering what other components should we be considering to incorporate this complete ecosystem. So, Dr. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but this is in the expected lines. I mean, I expected the answer to be quite distributed rather than on one particular thing, and it is quite a way distributed.
Right.
I expected it to be distributed, and
I was expecting the ecosystem to be the biggest one, and it's interesting that people were still talking about we do need the business case, et cetera, all that. When you have to respond to something, you kind of get it done. So when we talk about the ecosystem, then what other various components we've talked about. Keeping the lights on, we've talked about bringing the organization in, we've talked about platforms that we need to bring in terms of the new technologies, etc. Any other components, so if I could probably, Dr. Puneet, from your point, any other components that we should be considering? And, how successful have you been in your organization to drive that change through on a scale of 1 to 10? I know you kind of sort of said you've been on the forefront, but I'm just wondering what else did you have to consider?
So I've been if I have to rate that, I've been on the 10 side basically. So rather technology played as the biggest change agents here. And I agree with Rajesh when it says that when it talks about when, it percolates from top to bottom, then the approach is very different, right? So because when the management talks about, and a management has a buy-in that the technology has to be in the forefront, driving the business, then definitely it's the need of the hour. The stakeholders have to show their buy-in, because there is no other thought that the technology would not play a forefront role. And in the current scenario is it is more of a co-creation model. The co-creation model is the business sitting, working very collaboratively with technology department, taking them, identifying the use case in terms of faster go to market, as I shared with earlier. And I feel that the components like co-creation, within IT, people leveraging people's, the skill set, the talents which they come up with the traditional way of working, like the legacy. If a person is a infrastructure guy or is an information security guy, and not giving enough of succession planning or a multitasking within the technology space, which creates a 360-degree ecosystem within technology, that we don't have any dependency on one resource center. That is one of the things. So the third thing, what is that evolution in terms of learning, continuous learning management system? It plays a very big role in terms of, what you can sense. We have a lot of emphasis in terms of every 3 years, the persons within technology or even in the business stakeholders, they have to take up some or the other new kind of an initiative, and if it's a development guy, he has to move into the new age technologies like IoT, RPA, or all of them. And then what we have to do, we create a combination of a hybrid approach where we get the people from the industry, where they come as an SME. And what we get, because at this part of the world, we don't get a lot of good skill sets. So what we get, we know the business stakeholders, people who are more than 3 years into the business, we get them into technology. Plus we hire some new campus recruits who are good in technology. We blend the both skill sets together and gets the SMEs on board with small fintech companies and leverage their SME co-creation and create a hybrid structure where they leave, they make our people do the best practices and our IPR remains in-house. So that is how we leverage, and business also starts driving and reap benefits out of it, that what exactly was a co-creation model. So if a person, no doubt tomorrow, is a person who has been highly recruited in an MCOM and he's with a stat background, he comes as a data scientist and he could be a very big use case for artificial intelligence in driving that. So we make them learn technology, and then they are driving its benefits. That's how it's happening in a co-creation model. From IT, people get transferred. The CA is, coming to IT. IT is going. MCOMs are becoming the data scientists. So that is kind of a, workaround has been happening. The third thing, what I feel, which is more and more, is about the empowerment. Unless the empowerment is one talked about succession planning, secondly about moving across the skill sets within the IT to give a 360-degree view of a person so that they have robustness. Third is creating a center of excellence so that anybody can do process discovery and can identify what is the use case of which technology and how it can drive its benefits to the business. The fourth stage where I feel is that the time has come where anybody can beat, and they can become they can leverage those technologies, and they can convert those cost centers into profit centers. That is the revenue streams which we can talk about today, right? So in a nutshell, what we can say, everybody can become a CEO of their own existence.
That is so true, on a very philosophical level as well.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Balaji?
I don't know, but she put it very, very aptly and pretty rightly. One of the point so I'm not adding to whatever she said, but I'm commenting on the ecosystem, what you're talking about. See, the entire banking is moving towards the ecosystem, where we are talking about how do we invisible bankers, how banking is going to be invisible in a business transaction. That is where almost all the banks in the country are working on. The banking industry is working on how do we be invisible and be part of the ecosystem and be part of where banking is part of a process rather than a separate process by itself. So these are the areas where we have been working on, and I'm sure most of the other industries are also adopting to the same.
Okay. So coming back to this point of sort of brand and change, we've got a wave of digital transformation happening, and we've all talked about it. There's a need, and we are responding, and we're taking the lead as well. However, we do have a bunch of legacy systems that we all still have to manage. So how do you get those legacy systems to be digitally ready, or any other action that you're taking whilst there's this big wave of transformation happening? So it's really about how do you manage to allocate resources to legacy systems and keep them running. So Rajesh, any points?
Yeah, so legacy system have two impact. One is obviously lights on, and other is they also play important role in your digital transformation, because now on your digital front, your convergence of services demand that your enterprise systems are also robust and scaled and up and running all the time, right? So to answer this, there are two parts. So the way we are managing it, obviously, again, we needed to create a very robust enterprise API architecture. So whatever is required on the customer side is all very seamless, and it works 24/7. So that is the first thing which we did. And maintenance of legacy system, it needs lot of service management adoption or adherence, I would say. So driving the service management day in, day out on your critical systems, be it on capacity management or upgrades or database management. So these because in my experience prior to working in this company, I used to be part of IBM, and I was managing telco infrastructure delivery, and telco is the most complex possibly after banking and telco I would rate on the similar scale. And 40% or 50% of my lights on was driven by very simple service management process adoption. So if I could do that right, I was sure that nothing is going to break down. So that is kind of understanding and experience I could gain from my earlier stint, and I'm bringing that into this organization, and which is helping me to not to worry so much on the lights on area.
Okay. There's an interesting question that's come up on the Q&A window. So particularly in banking, when there's so much digitization happening, how are we still ensuring personalization is taken care of? If I can put that to Balaji.
You're asking my day-to-day job. I mean, how do we create how do we create personalization is a very, very important. See, personalization is not just about how do I address the customer, how do I meet the customer. Personalization is also about knowing the customer, knowing his risk appetite, knowing his if I have to give a loan for him, for example, I should know everything about him. And not everything we have to ask him, because there are lots of data which we ourselves have, and the ecosystem has about that particular person. So how can we assess a person very, very quickly and then can give a loan to him so that we can cut short? I mean, the entire this one is pretty. The market there is pretty controlled. There are lots of banks there and waiting to give it away. If it's a good profile, people are waiting to give loans. Not the case of the people who are not good profile. So first identifying who is the good profile and how do we, this one requires lots of personalization of data and lots of offerings there. So we have been working on the data part of it on a very large scale in our bank. At least we have been working on the data platforms and real-time processing of data, AI. How do I do machine learning? So these are the lots of tools we use and we present it. So the personalization part of it is not just about presentation to the customer. It's about the whole banking into the fold. I mean, is he a customer? Suppose he is coming for something we know that is a profile is slightly different, and he's not going to come for some petty things. So we know that what he is, and then giving the offering which is slightly different from other person who is coming. So personalization goes from a presentation layer to the loan layer to the service layer. So everywhere the personalization is coming in, for which we have to have a very large data crunching at the back end.
And I guess, Dr. Puneet, that would be, you would echo the same, right, in your world as well? Sorry, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. So actually, it depends. I agree with Balaji also here as well, that because it talks about, like, the customer profiling, because of his, investment patterns, his banking patterns, basically. We understand when we talk about, leaps and bounds, like what particular segmentation that particular customer belongs to, and what kind of offerings a bank or a banking domain can give you, a personalized relationship managers, offerings, what kind of things he has, what kind of need analysis he has, what kind of financial planning he would needs to have. And apart from that, whether he wants to be in the personal space of some investments in for his wealth management, or he would be interested for certain bankings, or he would be interested in some other asset classes. So it all depends. When we make and do a 360-degree portfolio, we build a a personalized portfolio for him. So his portfolios talks about, like, what exactly he really needs. And in case more and more engagements enables a banker or a relationship manager to have an understanding that, like, maybe if this is the really need of the hour, what he really needs, are we really going on that particular things? So I think the personalized touch is something, maybe through video or all these things that we're talking about, bots speaking today, or probably reaching out to them through SMS, or even WhatsApp is there being used by, and even like a personalized touch to them. So I think so. This is what, like, a personalized, banking can be given to any kind of customer.
Absolutely. I think, in fact, more attention has to be paid to that as we go more and more digital. When I just look at the whole, disruption that's caused by digitization, I wonder if, what is the outcome on the job market? It's a question that's come up from one of our participants. In terms of, we really need to be investing in developing those skills, the importance of that. Anything that you could talk about in terms of the outcome of the job market, and the risks associated with that?
I completely not followed, but I would still try to answer. I am assuming that the question is that people who are working with you and on this critical digital initiatives, what are their potential going out, and how do you protect organization? Is that the context, or?
No, I mean, the need to reskill, the need to develop those skills, the investments required there. What is the outcome on the job market? When you go out to look for those skills in the external market, are there risks associated with this? Are you finding that there's enough investment going on? Those skill sets are easy to get?
Skill set will not be easy to get. That's
No.
not the case. The
Not
skill
easy
sets is a very scarce resources around. I can only speak for Switzerland, but it's slowly developing. That the people are. So if I look for people who know about artificial intelligence and who know specific automation skills, that's a very thin layer of people, and there's a big fight. So you better put a budget on the side, because these people will be able to negotiate well, because there's also other companies wanting them. And so it's also very important, and I agree with Puneet that you need to develop your own people in that direction, that you train them, that you offer them support if they want to develop in that area, especially coming from all what we talked about before, the legacy systems. These people who worked in these legacy systems, they don't have a future in the job market. So we need to bring them up to a new level for the future. And many of them we can use, because the base is IT, and then they just need to develop the further to the new technologies.
So,
correct. There's a gap between obviously what is needed now, the demand, and the ability to supply. I mean, there's a global shortage almost of technical architects. We hear that all over the place. Go ahead, Dr. Puneet. You had a point.
So I would suggest it's a wonderful time or evolution to be in. It's a win-win situation, not only for technology, it's also for the business. Why? Reason being is that there has to be some balance, because people who are SMEs of the business, definitely they know how do their business come. So they come out with a very deep down knowledge of the business processes, especially SOPs are concerned. They have the full knowledge. So what they lack is technology. When we blend the two, basically, when it is like a technology person understanding the business and a business person leveraging technology, if these two are blended together, I think so, then it's a very good evolution for that organization. It's a real must. Then secondly, in terms of people who are fresh artificial intelligence guys in the market, if you say that they are technical guys and they will define the rule engines and they will come in any banking sector and they will say that 10 years of legacy systems, they can do an overall a complete transformation or a roundabout in the 24 hours. They are going to create some basically some what the miracles. No, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen overway. So at least they have to understand what exactly how the business runs, and technology will be used as a tool to bridge those gaps between business and technology, and how they will be able to define those role engines which will substitute a manual intervention with what exactly is the rule engine which the software will define for them. That in case of an underwriting, in terms of what is the credit risk of a customer, what is for usage for a cross-sell, upsell, or all these things. So these are the model, or in terms of depth, or in terms of analytics. These are all a plug and play in terms when both work together and gives a collaborative approach.
What a great place to finish, Dr. Puneet. Absolutely. The coming together of business and technology is the need for that is ever more so now. So we've run out of time. An hour was not enough, clearly, but it's hopefully it's kind of put some thoughts into our participants. And I think there's a forum where you can continue asking those questions through. So it just leaves it to me now to thank my panel. Thank you so much. Thank you, each one of you, to come with your ideas and to share them. Thank you, Shared Services Forum, as well, to set up this kind of webinar and give us a chance to be able to air our views. So I will close with that. Thanks again, everyone, and back to the host to kick off the next session, which is going to be on cyber resilience.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, everyone.